Hey folks, welcome back. It's Money in Politics and Money in Politics post Nashville. That's a bit of little slower than I wanted that to be. Someone asked me, where can I write you? Which I put up normally all the time. So that's where you can write me. And I'm just looking for, that's funny, I'm missing. It doesn't matter. I'm coming to you a little late tonight, so I'm a little bit rushed because it was such a busy day on Capitol Hill. Not necessarily that you would care about that, but we had the Treasury Secretary and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve testifying before the Senate Banking Committee. So I was recording some of that. I may play some of those clips because that does impact. This is what we say when we say money in politics. This is what it's about, that there's going to be times where, like now, what the people in Washington are doing is going to matter a lot to us. And we ought to be prepared. But tonight, of course, I'm going to be talking a lot about what just happened over the weekend as we had the Investors Conference in Nashville. And I'm going to set this up. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to try to make it relatable beyond, boy, we had a good time, and boy, we had a good time. But I want to try to add a little meat on the bone. But tomorrow, let's see, today is Tuesday. Tomorrow on Twitter Spaces at about 6:30 to roughly 7:30, Thomas and I will be participating on that. I wanted to get Tom in because Tom was with me in Nashville, and I wanted to also get his thoughts. And we all hear different things. We all remember different things when you go on a trip. And I was also wanting to get Tom in because he participated in so much of what went on when I was there. Now, that said, let me start with the fun part. This was certainly one of the highlights where Thomas and I met Brian Foote in person. This was on Thursday. This was Thursday. No, Friday morning. I'm sorry. Friday morning, the investor call. And that, of course, was recorded, so you can go and look at that. And if you haven't, go and look at it. I want to go back and look at the recording, because I found myself often when I was there in the room, I'm so distracted by, there's Brian, and there's Calvin, and you lose track of things. Anyway, this was a real hit. And then here, let's move along. It's not going to be just, but I want to share some of the photos that capture some of the mood. Here's Brian. We were out at a bar where we kind of gathered. I forget if this might have been Sunday prior to the football game. I forget. But this is Brian Foote with Christina. Now, Christina is from the L.A. area. And then we have me with Drummer Dude. And Drummer Dude was going to fly down. His plane got canceled. His flight got canceled. So he got in the car and drove down from New Jersey, which I think was about a 16-hour drive, if I remember. A heck of a long drive. So what does that tell you? One, the commitment. And two, I meant to say that Drummer Dude did a great video that runs about 2 minutes. It's on Twitter. I was going to copy it, but because there's music behind it, and if I put that on YouTube, they're going to ding me for copyright violation. I don't know how that works on Twitter. It seems to work on Twitter. But anyway, Drummer Dude did a great 2-minute video, and I would encourage you to follow him if you haven't. Look at his video, and he often puts out some of the funny videos as well. Here's a group, and again, you got Kendall and Drummer Dude and Christina and me, and there's Rebecca, if you haven't seen Rebecca before, and hopefully you have because I've interviewed her. And I believe Rick, the F-16 fighter pilot, guy, now an airline pilot. The one thing, I'll just a couple more videos and then I'll get off the photos. This is Thomas in the foreground. This was at the football game on Sunday. And you see, we had the Humbl section. This is just a small part of the Humbl section. Sitting next to me, the other direction, was Joy. And Joy came up, and she's from Seattle. And she came up and was saying, I'm Joy. And she had to remind me, and then it came back to me that we had met on Twitter Spaces. Of course, I'm not seeing what people look like there. But the first time I did a Twitter Spaces, it ran 6 hours. And Joy was one of the administrators, I believe, of that. And then here I am again with one-on-one with Rebecca. And I got, let me go back to this shot for a minute, because there's something I said, and I can't believe it. It's rather cumbersome, and I'm a little short of time tonight because I got backed up with all the stuff on Capitol Hill. There were a lot of photos from Friday night when they put on the event at the bar, the Acme Bar, and we had 2 different bands at different times, and it was just taking photographs all night long with people. It's hard for me to get them off the phone. I was trying to unload them, but my PC computer doesn't want to load the photos from my Apple phone en masse, so I've had to go through one by one and copy them, and it's just cumbersome. What I would say, what I said the evening, and I tweeted this, and this photo kind of captured that we arrived as strangers, but we left as friends. And the other thing, folks, and that's true, it's not just a bumper sticker. We really got to be friends, and I think Calvin Waite said it, that, it seems like you met people for the first time, and it seemed as if they were old friends, like you had known for years. And that really was the kind of the feeling that we had here, which was remarkable. So I know a lot of you wanted to kind of get the idea about what was going on socially, just to kind of get the feel, and that's the feel. Now, let me go back to meeting Brian Foote. I've met Brian Foote. I mean, here's where he gave his talk, and this was just social. I did get a chance to speak. In fact, Tom and I did, got a chance to talk prior to the football game at the stadium, but Brian and I shared had a hot dog, and we were eating and talking together. So Thomas and I and Brian were there talking for, I don't know, something like 10 or 15 minutes maybe. A couple of things about that. One, Brian's not going to give me inside information, so don't think that, what did you learn that he's not telling us? Nothing along those lines. But in hearing him, here's what I think I can share, and a couple of things. One, that I think aside from some of those pictures, the thing is, Brian is the kind of guy that he seems to be. He's open, he's approachable, and you see him right here being approachable. You see him with Christina, and he took pictures. He probably had 500 pictures taken of him with others over the weekend. And what I would say about that, and why that matters, is you have a CEO that is approachable and has a true feeling, a true relationship with his investors. And he got on stage on Friday night at the bar where the party was going on and spoke just briefly. But he said something that it fits with what I'm saying here, that where else do you get this kind of a feeling of camaraderie? I'm paraphrasing him. This feeling of camaraderie and being in it together, where there's no walls between the people who are running the company and the investors. And he goes, you get these other people in corporate America, and they just got all these walls about them, and maybe they show up in a room of 400 people, but they don't go out and party with you. Brian was out partying with us, and it was just wonderful. So it is, as I tweeted, in terms of fun, in terms of just having a fantastic time, not just with Brian, not just with Calvin, not just with Michelle, and we got to meet all of them, and they were all just great people. This is such a special company, folks, and a big part of that is the management team and the values of this company. Okay, I'm trying not just to go, boy, we had a great time. I'm trying to make it, for those of you who weren't there, relatable to your investment in the company. David, and sometimes it's hard for me to hear in the bars, but I should know, Wilkes, I apologize if I got his last name. David is a longtime guy on Wall Street who is, I'll say, an advisor, for lack of a better term, to Humbl and to Brian. And he was in a photo that was circulated. But anyway, the point is, I was talking with David on Sunday after the game, and we were gathered at the same bar where I showed you the photos before. And David said, look, I've been around for a long time, and I don't need to go out and hustle business anymore because people want me to take them on as a client. And he goes, I'm paraphrasing him, I'm very particular. And he goes, I pick my clients, they don't pick me. And the point is that the fact that he's working with Humbl, that he's working with Brian, where David, can cherry pick who he wants to work with, also says, it's not just me, also says a lot about the quality of this management team and the quality of the opportunity coming up. Now, there are going to be other things of substance that I want to talk about from this weekend, in addition to tonight, later in the week. I don't want to be talking for an hour here. And I think part of this is I wanted to share with you some of these photos, which are, hopefully communicate the level of enthusiasm that we as Humbl investors share, the fun that we share together, the respect that we have for each other. And all of us are kind of in the boat. I mean, Rebecca tweeting, how many times a day does she do something? 10 times a day. Joy doing the Twitter spaces. Drummer Dude putting out all kinds of videos. Kendall, Christina, F-16 guy. The whole group, comes together, and just the shared, what's the term? Just shared friendship and sense of purpose that we get from management. Michelle is great. Calvin's great. I talked at length with Calvin, I'm going to follow up with Calvin in a couple of weeks, so that we can do something that helps, give him a platform to say some things. I did talk to Brian at one point about doing an interview with him, and long story short, he wants to be. He's under such scrutiny from regulators that he wants to have, what's the term? Avoid even the appearance of conflict of interest. So he said he would like to do it, but he can't do it. He doesn't feel that he should do it right now. But on the other hand, he was very open in talking to Thomas and I, probably for about, 10 minutes roughly on Friday after the presentation, when we could grab him for a while and just share. And then again on Sunday when he and I talked, for a good amount of time. It was somewhere between 10, maybe 20 minutes long. One thing I guess I would say, and in fact, as Thomas and I were driving back for about 6 hours here and there, I said, Tom was taking some notes while I drove, and I said, let's talk about this, let's talk about that while it's on our mind. And Tom was taking the notes that we can bring it up later in the week. But one thing I would say is, if the two questions are, and I should have led off with this, what is Brian like? I think I've answered that. Down-to-earth, approachable guy. We all know he's smart. And the other thing, by the way, I was fortunate that I could talk to him just because I want to say, Brian, and I did say this to him, not only are you one of the foremost experts on blockchain technology, but I'm so impressed with his global mindset. And Brian even said in his speech that was videotaped, and you can look at, that too often we in America are myopic. And I think, again, as investors, this is very important that we have a CEO that is not myopic. He's not looking just at North America. He sees the global market, and he's going after the global market. He also said, as we talked about, I'm saying things that he said before, but just what did I talk to him about? I said, Brian, I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense that you're going after the ticket business because it is so huge, and I only know that from being involved in covering this story, that when we have a global ticket market of $100 billion, and now we are going, and I think going to become one of the leading purveyors over time here of tickets, and where you get a lot of mom and pop businesses, we're going to come in with the blockchain technology and do it, better than before. That by itself, which probably all of us, or none of us, I should say, had in mind tickets necessarily back in December or back in January. But I think as we go forward over the next 5 years, we could see that the ticket business can bring in substantial revenues and with good margins. And certainly in the near term, and when I look at the history of Humbl going forward, let's just say out of 10 going forward 10 years, that the ticket business could be something that brings in substantial revenues in the nearer term, and by that I mean 3 years, the next 3 years, whereas the 800-pound gorilla might ultimately be the peer-to-peer, but that's going to take, as Brian said, and he repeated that, as we talked about it, you got to watch the regulations. You got to really watch that because that's the kind of thing that can get you in big trouble financially and legally. The thing that Brian did say of substance, and there were two things he said. There's only two bogeys, as he said, that could bring us down. One is we run out of money, and he goes, that's not going to happen because we got backing that's just not going to happen. And two, that we run afoul of regulators. And he goes, that's not going to happen because I'm not going to allow it to happen, is what he said. That he's not going to rush a product out before it clears the regulatory hurdles. And if he did, it would expose the company to all sorts of then regulatory actions, fines, potentially lawsuits along those lines. So I'm not saying anything that he hasn't already said, but here and there in our conversation, and I'll go into it a little bit more. I'm already almost 20 minutes long here. I'll go into a little bit more of what we talked about. I know Thomas asked him some questions while we were there, and so I think we can give you a little more meat on the bone over the next several days as far as what was said, and we'll do that, okay? But because I'm already long, and I apologize, it's just that it was such a busy day. I got started here late. I wanted to have a little bit more. Don't forget, look at Drummer Dude's video on Twitter. It's well done, using the music from one of the bands and kind of chronicling his trip down. If you want to write to me, someone, again, said the other day, hey, where can I write to you? And I go, well, I put my email up there every night on the videos. And of course, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, you can follow me there. If you haven't subscribed, I should push that more. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to Money and Politics, the YouTube channel, as well as here. And then lastly, speaking as I wrap up, you know, when Thomas and I walked in, it was just so gratifying, of course, from an ego standpoint, that I just was stopped constantly with people going, Papa Humbl, and they wanted to take a picture with me. And so I wanted to just say thanks to everyone who watches the videos and who have embraced what I do, who thank me for what I do. It's humbling, no pun intended, humbling for me to, and gratifying, very gratifying, that you appreciate what I do, that you appreciate the work that I put into it, and that you're there to watch and comment. And I loved taking photos with everyone in the room, meeting people from all over the country. And that was just really magnificent. And so I bet it was like the first hour when I walked in, I couldn't even get to the bar. And I finally asked somebody if they would get me a drink because I'd been talking so much. You know, my throat was getting dry and I could hardly swallow anymore. But that was just, it was just a great, I can't think of the word I'm looking for here. It was not just with me, the whole bar, the whole feeling was one really of family. That's probably the better word. It was a feeling of family. And I can tell you that in 40 years of investing, never, ever, ever has there been an experience like this, where you get together, average people, and this again, and this is important, this is where you are seeing, yeah, we're a company that's below $1, but we're not going to stay here. And the fact that we are below $1, you can get big investors, and there's some big investors in this photo, and you can get, just run-of-the-mill people. And the average Joes out there. And when's the last time you saw the CEO of the company go out and just take all the time needed to take pictures with the investors that bothered to come down, took a risk and put their money into his company? And that's Brian Foote doing that. That's leadership, folks. That's leadership. So with that, I'll wrap up. Apologize for going a little long. Obviously, it was, as I said in my tweet, one of the great weekends of my life, and it was nothing but fun as well. It was also educational, I'll say that. And yes, did it affirm my belief in Humbl and the future? Yes. And I guess what I would also say, and I'll probably go into a little more detail later in the week, is, some of the things that Brian has always had in mind for the company to do, I think, having now had a chance to talk to him, I think a number of those things that are yet to have happened are going to be huge, okay? And tokenization is one. They're going to be huge. And where we got in thinking peer-to-peer was the play, and maybe we thought of it very narrowly that was going to be the whole play, taint the whole play. It's not just peer-to-peer. It's not just ticketing. It's not just NFTs. And by the way, shout out to Doug. I got to meet Doug, who was the head of Monster. That's now a part of Humbl. Shout out to, of course, Calvin and Michelle, who I met, and Glenn. I have pictures with all of them. Maybe I'll throw some of those in a subsequent video. But folks, what I would say is what I said months ago. It seems like years ago. What I said months ago when we were first starting. You're buying a company. You're not buying a stock price. The fact that the stock price is low right now is inconsequential. Let me take that back. Here's why it's not inconsequential, because you can afford to get the stock at a low price. And I think that there are going to be things happening as we go into the future that are going to capture the imagination of more investors, capture the imagination of more people on Wall Street and the big money people. As I said, David, who is a nice guy, but he he's not the easiest interview, so to speak, and he doesn't share what he doesn't want to share. But he did share that he can be very picky when it comes to who he works with, and the fact that he's working with Brian and his team says a whole lot. So it's not just me saying that, as I said. Anyway, for now, I will say good night. Have faith, folks. The future is going to be interesting, and I think if you hang in there and don't react to the day-to-day stock prices, you're going to be happy that you were early on an investor in the Humbl story. And with that, I'll say good night until next time.